Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Watch Your Heroes Fall. This will be Part 30, Chapter 34, entitled Phase 4, Song 5. Dream a Little Dream of Me by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. The final article has been written. It has been written since the beginning, but Izuku has still pulled 2 consecutive all-nighters checking the legal language and grammar and fact-checking, and he has handed it to everyone in the league to check over, too. Himiko and Dabi and Tomura, none of whom finished middle school, can't read all the bigger words, and so Hitoshi, who has agreed upon best reading voice, reads the whole 46 pages aloud, on the couches on the second floor of the bar for them. They make the verbal notes that Izuku writes down with red-eyed frenzy to be added in. Compress, who has an undergraduate degree in law, which he uses to evade the law, which he had decided wasn't important enough to tell anyone before, which Izuku seems incredibly, inexplicably upset about, combs over the article with a fine-tooth comb, before patting Izuku's shoulder and saying, "Flawless. I wouldn't be able to loop out of it." How much of this is true and how much is Compress trying to coerce Izuku into resting is unclear, but Compress wouldn't outright lie about something so significant. So Izuku accepts this and moves on. Hitoshi and Shoto and Momo don't seem to understand the full and complete gravity of the article, but they can tell it's important to Izuku, so they really do read it carefully, and then conclude they're not sure it could be added to. Jean and Magne have adult maturity, if only layman's vocabulary, and their non-professional adult opinions. It looks just fine. Kurogiri has mostly recovered from his fainting spell, but has seemingly acquired the need for sleep, and he reads it, commenting in Japanese broken between polite paternity and juvenile joviality. He never seems to notice the switches, but neither dialect seems comfortable on his tongue. When everyone has reviewed it and commented, and Izuku has read it another 6 times, Dabi grabs Izuku by the shoulders to stop his pacing, and Shoto nods to thank his brother, and then wraps Izuku in both arms and says, "My love, you need sleep." Izuku does not struggle, but his voice is a low growl, and he snaps, "What I need is for this to be done. You understand, don't you? I can sleep when it's done. I can sleep when it's done. I can sleep when it's done." Tears have built and spilled onto Izuku's cheeks. He's running out of steam, and he knows it. Kurogiri approaches with a blanket warped down from Izuku and Shoto's room, and he wraps it around Izuku and Shoto where they're standing. Izuku begins crying harder, tears building to sobs that come right from his chest. "It's not done yet," he hiccups. "You have done everything to that fucking document that anyone could do to it," Tomura says flatly. "You're driving us all insane with your pacing and muttering. Go to bed." "And no sneaking out in the middle of the night," Momo says, nodding along with Tomura. "Whatever project you're working on outside the bar can wait until you've rested." "But there is no more bar after I've rested," Izuku sobs. "We're almost done." Jean's left arm spasms with a tic. "Really?" he says, voice whooshing from his chest in disbelief. "Done? Done like how done?" "Like really, seriously go home kinda done," Magne says. If you weren't looking at where her acrylics were picking at the hem of her sleeves, you wouldn't know she was nervous about that. She doesn't have a home to go back to. None of them do, really, except Izuku and Momo and maybe Hitoshi. The bar has been home for them. They don't have anything outside of it. The ending of this, however this is defined, is scary because once it ends, their home ends. They haven't defined the end yet either. To this point, it had been a hazy island where, yes, they can rest, but they will all have to wander off on their own. Izuku is still sobbing. Shoto is quietly soothing him, trying to get him to relax. Dabi and Magne have started whisper bickering over what to do about Izuku. Magne wants answers. Dabi is scared of the answers and wants to put Izuku to bed. Kurogiri tells them to whisper bicker elsewhere, let Izuku rest, and Himiko starts nervously trying to usher Izuku and Shoto, still ensconced in their blanket, up to bed. sleepy time," she sings. No, I need to publish it first," Izuku moans. "Izuku," Shoto says, forcing Izuku to look him in the eyes. "Is it important that it is done now, or can it wait?" "It's a timer," Izuku explains obtusely. "It has to be at 2 p.m. Hitoshi laughs. "You know that makes no sense, right? Is this you or the sleep deprivation talking?" "It's me," Izuku cries. Shoto feels the familiar crackling energy of Izuku's quirk along his skin, and he brushes his cool hand right over Izuku's chest, which has Izuku slumping against him. All right, kids, time for bed, Jean says. Izuku stiffens and bristles, and Jean says, I'll publish it for you, Izuku, but it's another 30 minutes to 2 p.m., and you need sleep. Izuku tenses, shrugging the blanket off his shoulders. Himiko jumps back a few feet, away on instinct, and bares his teeth. I need to post it. Shoto pulls Izuku back into his arms and runs that cool hand over Izuku's forehead again. Again, Izuku slumps, but he mumbles pleadingly. Shoto, I need to post it. It's the last thing before I go. I have to. You understand, right, Shoto? I just have to post it, then I'll go. And Shoto knows this is the sleep deprivation talking. Izuku hasn't rested in over 48 hours. The candle he's been burning at both ends is just the ash of the wick now. He can't keep this up, but the desperation in his eyes is a neon that paints the world around him in pastels. And it's Izuku. Shoto says, We can wait until you post it, but then it's bedtime. Izuku nods earnestly. Shoto wants to kiss his head. Shoto wants to cry. He can't trace the motivation for either of those two actions, so he does neither. Kurogiri, placated, begins gathering together the materials to make warmed milk, and Himiko recognizes it and says they should have cookies too, which Jean then offers to make, except Magne and Momo disagree on whether they should make chocolate chip or ginger snap cookies. Magne ropes Hitoshi into making chocolate chip with her, while Momo drags Himiko into making ginger snap with her. Jean, experienced in the chaos of too many cooks in the metaphorical, or in this case literal, kitchen, begins directing everyone on utensils, ingredients, and space divisions. Compass gets a sly look and asks Dabi if he can borrow his portable speaker, which Dabi of course agrees to because he knows Compass well enough to interpret that sly look, and he lumbers upstairs to fish the speaker out from under the jacket he hasn't touched in months. Shoto shuffles Izuku into a booth and puts the blanket back over the two of them. Tomo drops his head on his arms and pretends to be asleep, but Shoto can see where his eyes peek out and watch the scene. Shoto never thought the man who tried so ardently to kill them would ever wear an expression that could be described as fond or loving. Shoto knows that he will be more forgiving than most. When your own parents try to kill you in turn, it stings less from others, heals quicker. But even Momo clings to Himiko just as tightly as Himiko clings to her. Neither of them ever had anyone see them as a peer. Momo was always too good, and Himiko was never good enough. But Momo now has flour on the bridge of her nose, and Himiko throws a handful in the air, and now they're sisters. Dabi returns from his room, speaker in hand. Compass thanks him, takes it, connects his ancient-looking music player, and a soft rumble of trumpet caresses the aging wood of the bar. A woman's voice smooths the pizzicato raps of Hitoshi bickering with Momo over who gets to use the green bowl, and Magne whisking together some dry ingredients and Himiko spinning the butter knife through the flour container, and Kurogiri telling everyone not nearly stern enough to be quiet while people are resting. Kurogiri sets a hand on Hitoshi and Himiko's heads, and the black smoke dissipates to reveal pale, scarred hands. Shoto thinks they look a lot like Izuku's, with the scars. Shoto wonders which friend Kurogiri saved to get them. He is convinced the only way to get scars on your hands is by saving a friend, even though he knows he's far too old to be superstitious. Izuku is fading into unconsciousness beside Shoto, and Shoto lets that firelight fade from his eyes while he sinks into the booth. Shoto will wake him when it's time. Hitoshi brings Magne melted butter from the microwave, sighing. Magne tells him to spill, or stop sighing, but pick one. It's just... Hitoshi's ears bloom red with embarrassment. I was just wondering why the song's got to be in English is all, I guess. It's too stilted to be Hitoshi's usual blasé, and too serious to be anything but a crush. Momo smirks while she sprinkles in spices. You mean you miss Kaminari, she says, voice perfectly even and betraying nothing, but Himiko gasps and begins to bounce on her toes, abandoning the mixing she had promised to do once Momo added the spices. Hitoshi, to avoid the impending onslaught from Himiko, and probably Magne and Compass and Dabi and Jean, Hitoshi counters. You still listen to the Spotify playlist Jiro made you every night. Momo's eyebrows raised to her hairline, and then pinched to her nose. Excuse you, that was private. Then don't play it right next to the wall between our rooms. Why, you foolish... And then it happens, and Hitoshi has a glob of unfinished, undermixed ginger snap cookie dough in his hair, and he grins maliciously. Oh, you're on, he hisses, and then steals a fingerful of chocolate chip cookie dough, minus the chocolate chips, and flicks it right at Momo, and it hits her square in the forehead, just above her right eye. She gasps, she fumes, And then she feels Magne's consternation, Himiko's excitement, Kurogiri's affection, Comfort's shock, Jean's amusement, Dabi's laughter, Tomura's fondness, Shoto's smile, Izuku's gentle sleep, and she meets Hitoshi's glare for an instant, and the both of them burst out laughing, and Magne ruffles Hitoshi's hair further and tells him to go shower, and Jean wipes the cookie dough off of Momo's forehead and tells her she might want to wash her face, and Tomura hides his face more fully in his arms so nobody sees him laughing with them, and Kurogiri's whole body extinguishes its smoke for a moment to laugh too, and Himiko sees his blue hair and exclaims and tries to climb up his arms to get a better look, but Dabi pulls her off. Shoto doesn't know why he's crying. Izuku does. He kneads his shoulder blades against the fraying faux leather of the booth behind him, trying to convince his body to stay awake these extra 15 minutes, and leans against Shoto instead. He doesn't say, "You deserve this. You've always deserved this." He doesn't say, "I'm so sorry this was stolen from you, by a mother who broke and the father that broke her." He doesn't say, "Here is what family could have always been, will always be, if you want to keep it." He says, "You're warm," and trust Shoto to understand the rest. Hitoshi returns from the shower and says to Momo, "That was funny as fuck, but if you ever put something that sticky in my hair again, I'm returning the favor." Momo accepts this ultimatum with grace, and Kurogiri passes out mugs of warm milk. The cookies are in the oven, but they'll be out soon, just after the final article is posted. Izuku, with the soft hum of Ella Fitzgerald still settled comfortably into the cinnamon air of the room and the soft taste of warm, spiced milk sliding down his throat, is barely lucid. Magne picks him up and swings him into the bar stool in front of the laptop so nobody has to worry about the waver in his steps as he walks. Izuku has had the article queued, awaiting one click of a drafted email. The final article will be sent to every news outlet that is willing to work with the anonymous author Izuku had previously operated as, and since most of them know exactly who Izuku is, it's basically every major news source, and most of the local ones too. There are 153 recipients of this email, and they will be receiving the article titled The Final Statement. That article has the entirety of the 46 pages of legal jargon, as well as an additional 12 pages stuffed with empty signature lines, the first 11 signed digitally by everyone in the league, and a programmed sidebar to the PDF containing a 16-hour countdown clock. Everyone in the league disagreed with the countdown at first, even Tomura saying, "Isn't that, kind of fucked up?" But Izuku had explained it clearly enough, even in his near-delirious state the day prior, that they all agreed to the idea. "Ready," Izuku says, firelight back in his eyes and grinning, wide and real. "This ends it." "And then we all rest," Shoto says. It's a question, even if it doesn't sound like it, and Izuku nods. "Not what I thought the final boss would look like," Tomura says, looking nervous and young and unsure in his two-fingered gloves from Momo, but he nods. "Well, what are we waiting for?" Kurogiri says in that strange new inflection that clearly isn't Kurogiri. Is someone before Kurogiri. "I want to get home." Nobody asks what that means. "I'll click it if you don't," Dabi says, and Izuku glares, and Dabi puts his hands up appeasingly. Momo nods. "Go ahead, Izuku." Himiko is clinging to Momo's sleeve like she'll be torn from her the moment Izuku presses the button if she doesn't. Izuku closes his eyes, and the world swims away from him, so he opens them and faces this head-on. He clicks send. The file size and the extensive recipient list makes the sending slow, and the whole league counts the seconds until eventually a blue box glows. Sent. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 34 of Watch Your Heroes Fall. Chapter 35 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.